What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to help you be happy, healthy, wealthy, get better every single day. The subject matter we're going to cover today impacts everyone. I'm talking and it doesn't matter if you're 2 years old or you're 92 years old. The subject matter we're talking about is trust, and it is absolutely fascinating. We have a trust expert that we're going to bring on, and his work is absolutely amazing. David Horsager is best-selling author of The Trust Edge and CEO of Trust Edge Leadership Institute. With clients ranging from Fortune 100 companies to professional sports teams and global governments, David has taken the platform across the United States and on 6 continents. He invented the Enterprise Trust Index and leads the charge in the nation's foremost trust study, the Trust Outlook. Well, brother, I'm blessed to have you here. It sounds like you've been traveling all over the damn world, which is amazing, especially with what you're talking about. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Great to be here, JM.
It's good to have you, man. So I guess I'll just start with that because we were talking off air, and I mean, your travel schedule, my goodness, it's not just trust you're talking about in the U.S., brother. We are going global with this. Tell me a little bit about what are you working on, man?
Well, on the speaking front, I'm working on lots of things. You know, I guess I'll tell you some of the international stuff. Maybe some of the fun ones, working with presidents of other countries and companies, and bring it. You know, I'm at Capitol Hill 5 times a year, trying to bring some Republicans and Democrats together. I'm the only non-senator, governor, representative that's part of this board that brings people together. But you know. Fundamentally, whether it's through me speaking 100 times a year around the world, or whether it's through my books, those are kind of David things. The 2 other buckets are, you know, research and measuring trust. So we measure trust in everything from massive organizations and universities to small companies and individuals. You know, the Enterprise Trust Index to a self-trust index. 2, certifying people. So we have a few hundred certified partners around the world, training people on Navy ships and in Nairobi, Kenya. And I heard this morning added 2 more in Philippines. They're using our trust framework and our tools to increase trust in leaders, organizations. That's our mission. We think, I guess I go back to the fundamentals really quick for those that haven't heard our work. I think I was one of the first in my grad work a couple decades ago to show how a lack of trust is the biggest expense in a company or an organization. I believe if people don't solve with trust, they're not solving the real issue. So we don't have a leadership issue. The reason I follow a leader or not is trust. We don't have a marketing issue. The only way to amplify a marketing message is increase trust in the message. We don't have a sales issue at the core. The only way to speed up a sale for sure, and really is to increase trust in the channel. But you have to deal with trust. Then you can increase sales. You can drive. If you change the framework of trust under the sale, you increase sales. The learning in a classroom only goes up when I trust the content or the teacher or the safety or trust of the room more. Diversity we know from the biggest Harvard study, diversity on its own of almost any kind puts or pits people against each other unless we increase trust. Then we can get great benefits out of diversity, equity, and inclusion, but only then. Innovation on a team only goes up when they trust each other, otherwise they won't share ideas. So we're dealing with this core issue of trust. As far as internationally, fortunately, some of the biggest companies in the world and biggest organizations, Penn State, MIT, to governments and working with parliaments and working with we've had people say it tripled their sales. We've had people in the Navy say it dropped suicides. We've had people say, it helped them gain 11% market share. So when they think about trust, and I'm not thinking of David Horsager, I'm thinking of this framework of how trust is built. When they build that framework, that's what we want to solve with trust and help them get the results they want.
Amazing. So it sounds like this started for you in college, and you found this, which is true, in my opinion. I mean, relationships to business. The way you're talking about, without trust, you really don't have anything. So I'm going to ask the big question, and maybe this gets a touch into your framework, but brother, we're not taught how to build trust. This is not something that I went to school for, and they're like, hey, this is how you're going to build trust, and this is how it's going to work. This is something that I have absolutely fallen on my face. Some relationships I've absolutely succeeded. Where are we missing it to where it's like, okay, I think most people listening can agree. Trust is really important. But David, how the heck do I build it, man? How do I do a better job of reaching across that aisle as you were talking about with Democrats and Republicans? I mean, this is a big idea, brother. How do we do that?
Well, there's a lot to it, but I'll give you the simple framework. Under this framework, we have loads of tools and actionable ways to build it. But first, I want them to have a common language, and that is 8 components. 8, I call them pillars of trust. These 8 ways are how trust is built. So if I looked at your situation, we could start with any of these. And the first one's a good place to start: clarity. People trust the clear, and they mistrust or distrust the ambiguous or the overly complex. Where I was a professor, we got to look smart, right? Anytime we look smart and complexify, we lose clarity, which loses trust. Clarity wins today. Clarity, a leader that's not clear about the vision might not be trusted. A salesperson that's not clear about the benefits, they're really clear about how cool they are and how long they've been in business. That's the wrong type of clarity. Clarity about the benefits to me, I start to buy. A manager that's not clear about expectations, I get frustrated with. A teacher that's unclear about the assignments, I go home frustrated. Clarity is one of the ways that trust is built. Secondly, compassion. We learned in the research in my grad work, and it was after college in my later my master's and graduate work. But we learned that we trust those that care beyond themselves. If you only care for yourself, care about yourself, a big word that came out of this research funnel was intent. If I don't have intent beyond myself, I don't want to be accountable to you, or so forth. Number 3 is character. Of course, character is important. We thought character would be everything, of course, but it's not everything. We trust people that do what's right over what's easy, that act the same way in the dark as they are in the light. That's true. But for example, I might trust JM to take my kids to the ball game because he's got character and compassion, but that doesn't mean I'll trust JM to give me a root canal because of competency. So number 4 is competency. We've got to stay fresh and relevant and capable. This is why your work is so important. You bring freshness, you bring in insights. It's unbelievable today how many people are leading the way they were 20 years ago, selling the way they were 10 years ago. We have to stay fresh, relevant, capable. We trust those that stay fresh and relevant and capable. I should have warned you. Most people don't have to increase the speed when they listen to the podcast when I'm talking, but you know how you and I listen to them like, oh, let's amp that up 2 times. Come on. But anyway, compassion. I'll get through these quickly and then we'll back and forth a lot. So compassion is another pillar of trust. The next, and then character, and then competency. Then the next pillar is commitment. What we learned in the research is we trust those that are willing to stay committed in the face of adversity. So if I am want to follow you and you're going to jump when there's a pandemic or another tough situation, I'm not saying people didn't need mental health help or other help. I'm just saying I'm going to trust people that'll stick with me when it's battle time, when it's difficult, when it's hard. If I think they're not committed, I'll have a hard time. We should come back to this one and learn the quick how you rebuild trust, because it comes under this pillar. We've all needed to rebuild trust. Next pillar is connection. We trust those that are willing to connect and collaborate with others. There's counterforces to trust. So a counterforce to trust might be siloing. That pushes against this pillar of connection and collaboration. I can go through the counterforces later. They might be interesting. But the next pillar is contribution. Now, of course, we use these C's for clarity, but not to be cute and motivational. So the number one word that came out of this contribution pillar is results. We trust those that contribute results. You can't just have compassion and character. You've got to deliver results. You've got to have outcomes. I can go in for surgery. Let's say it's amputation. That's the most compassionate surgeon I've ever met. High character too, but they cut off the wrong leg. We got a problem. You got to contribute results. You promised me sales. I need sales. You promised me this product. I need this product. So you can't just but there's people that just contribute results and they don't give compassion or character, and they lose also. All 8 were important to gain this thing we've come to call the trust edge. Final pillar, queen and king of the pillars, consistency. Sameness is trusted. You can be trusted for good or bad. If you are consistently late, I will absolutely trust you to be late. Right? This is what you don't have to like McDonald's to trust them. I've had the same burger on 6 continents. So sameness. And by the way, it's the queen and king because all the pillars above it, character only inconsistently isn't really character. Clarity only at the annual meeting. You better share that vision and values every 14 days in the world we're in. You better share. You better have 3 or less priorities. You've got to get clarity. Clarity is a massive one. That's why I spend some time on it. It's a couple days to teach our work of strategic and communication clarity. But just to note, they all work together. These 8 work together. And when people learn to solve against this simple framework, they actually solve the real issue. People will say, we got leadership. No, it's one of these. Engagement. No, you don't get engagement with engagement. You have to increase one of these. That gets more engagement. You might say, David, you love C words. Isn't it ever a communication issue? Ladies and gentlemen, it is never at the core a communication issue. Communication is happening all the time. Clear, number one, clarity is trusted. Unclear communication is not trusted. High character is trusted. Lying isn't. Competent is trusted. Incompetent communication isn't. So if you can go through these, you go one level down from a lot of what people say, and they actually start to solve the real issue.
You know, it's fascinating about what you just said there, the last piece with communication. It is interesting. I'll give you something I've struggled with through the years. If I don't trust a speaker, and I won't say the names, but I know several influencers, they're pretty darn big, but I know them personally. I know their character.
Yeah.
I know some of their commitment. I'm just going to use some of these, and I certainly know the consistency. It's not there. However, the message is not bad. And I guess to your point, it's not that they're saying something. The communication is actually very good. They're great on stage. But because they lack at least 3 of those C's, as I look through the list, I don't really hear it, man. And it's one of these things I've had to really evaluate. Don't kill the messenger, hear the message. I'm just curious with your thoughts with that. So, because again, I see behind the curtain or under the kimono, whatever you want to say, and I know who's delivering the message. The message isn't bad, but I'm not hearing it, Dave, because they don't have 3 of these straight out of the gate. Can I solve that issue, or is this literally, hey, man, they don't have it, it's just forget it and move on?
One of the saddest things about my speaking career is I've gotten to be on bigger and bigger stages, and twice now I've been asked to open the biggest one-day leadership event in the country, supposedly 100,000 people or whatever it is. I have been the least known in that group of 10 speakers. Kindly, actually, the CEO of that just mentioned me, but you were the highest rated, so that's fun. But you want to be that. I'm obviously still learning too, but it's fun to be asked back. But the saddest thing, the first time I went was, I went there and I was excited to meet and see some of these people I've looked up to. Big names you would know. Big. I mean, everybody would know, not just you and me. I mean, like non-thought leaders would know. And the saddest thing for me was seeing how different they were off stage than on stage. And that's killer. And so obviously I lost trust. The big problem with these 8 pillars is I will stand by that these are the 8 to build the deepest type of trust. Now, in entertainment, people can be trusted for entertainment without having the character pillar because they're entertaining. I might weigh the pillars differently and say, you know what, my pilot, I really want to weigh high on competency. I don't really care who they slept with last night too much. I might, but my nanny or my babysitter for the kids, they better be really high on character. And they better be high on compassion, let's say. So I might weight these a little differently depending on things. But to gain this thing we call a trust edge in business, we want all 8. And that's what I'm going for in this imperfect fallen world. That's what we're trying for. That's what I'm seeking myself to live by. And the problem, of course, is people can manipulate these 8 pillars to look trusted for a time, but not actually be worthy of it. So underneath all this, I'm actually going for trustworthiness. That's what I really hope for in whether it's countries because I know when they become worthy of trust, they gain this in a real way. And, but you're right. People can manipulate and all kinds of things. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I guess that's why they say never meet your heroes, right? Because look, we're not infallible. Human beings clearly have their warts, but I guess when it's in direct opposition of what they're saying on stage, as you experience, it's like, come on, bro. I just listened to you on stage, and then I'm at dinner with you, and it's nothing of what you're doing. I wonder if there's similar.
No, I'm sorry. There are some that are great. Like I would say, I'm not going to say the ones that aren't, but I met Ken Blanchard and became like, he was the same on stage. Zig Ziglar, when he endorsed my first book, he was the same on stage and off. So there are people that we've seen live it. You and I can try. We're going to be imperfect too, but we can try to live it. And I've had events where I spoke at this event, then I flew to another event, then I flew back through that same city, slammed the bin on my fingers in the airplane, and looked around. I thought, oh, a lot of these people just saw me speak before I flew. Like, I hope I'm reacting, the way I want to be. But there are some, and I just think we can. I agree with your quote. I mean, that's what happened to me in essence, seeing my heroes. But I actually think it's healthy. It's healthy to see some live it that way, but it's also healthy to see the Ken Blanchards and Zig Ziglars and others that I could name that are seeking to live it on stage and off.
Yeah, no, I have not had a chance to meet Zig, but I did have a son on my podcast. A great guy, absolutely fantastic.
He's just down to earth.
Tom's great, isn't he? Amazing. I'm curious, brother, because we're talking about, let's just think of some leaders. Is there a leader, whether it's modern times or going back in history, where you look at this list and you go, man, he nailed it? Because I'll throw one out there, one of my favorite leaders, and that would be Nelson Mandela. Now, he had his warts, brother. He was a known womanizer. There's no question about it. So maybe that's a character thing. But I will tell you, as a leader, talk about reaching across not only an aisle, but we are talking a major challenge, obviously, in South Africa. When I think of a leader, I look back and I'm looking at the list. I'm going, gosh, he's pretty high on my list. Do you have one that really sticks out to you where you're like, man, he or she really exhibited these 8 pillars?
Well, two sides of this. One side is the people that you see out there, the big timers like Mandela, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa. These are people that we saw and heard they did certain things. They had their flaws too. Martin Luther King, for example. But they also did these great things in the face of just terrible pressure. So we say it all the time. The fastest time to increase trust is in the midst of crisis. How you respond to crisis. Even George W. Bush, when were his ratings the highest? The week after 9/11. How you respond in crisis. So we get to see that amplified. And certainly the high character of Mandela, the high character of, Churchill was all over the place. What's he doing? But at the darkest hour of the 20th century, he might have saved the world because he had a deep character of a certain kind. So they're maybe all imperfect, but the way to know people, what I want to be most trusted by, is it my fans or audience or something like that, or is it by my kids and family? The people that I believe have the highest trust are the ones that I know of a person. You know this name too. I'm not going to say it, but this person is well known and loved from people far from him. But those close to him, his family, I've seen his kids talk about him. I would die if it's they don't trust him. So the highest trust person is usually trusted by the closest to them. Like this person is kind of the same on stage and off, we say. So if I'm going to take my highest trust, I can say people like Colin Powell that did certain things, and I can say people certainly bigger names that lived a certain way. Condoleezza Rice. Wow. There's some people that are living it out. And have lived it out. I can think of my friend right now, Representative Reed, from bringing these Republicans and Democrats together. It's an unbelievable story. He was locked out on January 7th and has an interesting perspective of what really happened there. And I'm just that he would go that night and put his arm around his best friend, a Democrat, and vote together with him that night and say, hey, we're not going to deal with parties now. We're going to do what we think is right for the country. And there are people today living these things out imperfectly. But I have to go to my dad. And I tell in the first book, I read a story about him, Trust Edge. And on stage, I often tell a story about him. But it's just here's a guy that, farming in the poorest county in Minnesota, starting with nothing, come back from the Korean War, little by little build this up. I was like, why did so many people love working for him? Why did they want to work with him? And it was this character piece, this fairness piece, this encouragement piece. It was living out these pillars. So I mean, people, you see speakers and thought leaders and stuff. You can either learn a lot from like maybe a terrible childhood, right? A lot of people like, oh, I don't ever want to be like that. And I guess I started thinking, I probably don't have anything to say because I had this amazing dad and mom and this amazing leader I watched. And I started learning, it's not my fault I have a great dad. And I started to learn from having a great leader that I got to see. And part of, we think a lot of people go back and say, oh, your graduate work, your research, all the things you've done with this trust stuff. Where did this start? And it probably started on a farm out of Verndale, Minnesota, watching someone live this out that made me want to research this and see how it's done right.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, brother. And again, it's a word that gets passed around almost haphazardly, right? I trust you. I love you. But real trust. I mean, really having this. I have two questions that are just ruminating through my head. The one is, can we build trust quickly? Is there a certain amount of time, brother, that you have to see?
Yes. There's a lot of fallacies about trust today. I mean, when I started this work, almost nobody was talking about trust. In 2030, it was not a hot topic at all. Now, the last 5 years, everybody's talking about and writing about trust with and mostly without research, right? So you have people saying transparency is trust. No, it's not. I mean, it can build trust. We talk about that and we see it from the research, but your kids are so transparent on social media, I don't trust them for a second because confidentiality is also trusted. Their confidence is trusted. It can be, but if it looks like arrogance, it's not. And another one of those is speed to build trust. It's true, by the way, the deepest trust does take time. But what people think, it takes a long time to build trust. It takes a long time. Most trust is built in a moment or a few moments. Most of your trust is in such a short time. It deepens, of course, with time. When I see you go through a terrible experience and how you respond then, I get deeper in my trust because I saw you handle it. You're consistent then. But most of the trust we're talking about is built in a moment. That's why it matters. Little things, first interaction, second interaction, all consistency keeps building it, but a load of trust is built and lost in a moment.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that because I will say I read energy, I trust my intuition, and 99% of the time that gut reaction, just like the book Blink, Gladwell talked about it years ago, when I feel it, I can talk myself into, but look, they're doing all these great things. And every time I'm wrong, by the way. So that's why I was so curious on that question, if it needed time. But the truth is, we know, man, you have this sense.
Yeah. Your gut's right almost all the time. Now, there are people that are wrong in their gut, and it's good to learn and have wisdom, especially on deep things. This is why it matters so much to have accountability or mastermind or close friends or mentors, so you can talk through these deep decisions and making big decisions like, I'm not sure if I'm right about this, the weighty, big, long thing. But in interactions, your gut is almost always right. We learned a long time ago, I should sense fear here. There's a reason I'm in a place, that my brother, his car was stolen after a Vikings game with a gun to his head, in a parking lot that was full daylight. And he just felt something. And all of a sudden he's on the ground with someone taking a wallet out of his pocket and running off with, driving off with his car. But it's like those feelings we should pay attention to. A lot of trust we can read through, what you got. And they usually come back to these things. There was a character issue or there was whatever it is.
No, it's a fascinating subject. I mean, look, I have, like I said, so many questions. We all at some point, or maybe not everyone, but like we said, we're not mistake free. We make mistakes. But let's say you break trust with someone you deeply care about. And I feel like anybody listening can relate to this. At some point, and it's probably the biggest threat to that relationship is if you break trust, what now do you have?
Right.
How do you repair it, Dave? Is there a certain way that you go about it? Is it literally going, all right, I screwed up my commitment, or clearly I wasn't consistent with my character? And do we kind of relay it to the person to say, I value this relationship, I want it again, and I'm sorry, this is what I'm working on. How does that look?
Well, we have a 10-step process in how you rebuild trust, whether whether you've had an oil spill or you're an individual, right? But in this short time together, let's just narrow it down to the one thing. You never rebuild trust without this one thing. This is the most important thing. Let me start by saying this. You don't ever rebuild trust on the apology. People think they apologize and they rebuild trust. I showed remorse. Come on. I said, I'm sorry. Yeah, you said you're sorry about being late, and you're late every time. I don't trust you just because you said you're sorry. This does not mean we don't start with an apology or start by showing remorse to open the door. It's one of the 10 steps. But the only way, whether you're a big company with an oil spill or an individual, the only way to rebuild trust comes down to one thing, and that is, if you want to be trusted again, you have to make and keep a new commitment. So I might apologize. I might do the whole 10-step process. If people are interested in getting certified or seeing more of our content, no problem. We have 40 different tools or 48 of them or something that to apply to your situation. But rebuilding trust is critical because we've all needed to. Every one of us have made mistakes and we've needed to rebuild trust. It might be a little thing like I was late to that really important dinner to you and I didn't show up on time. It might be a big thing. The bigger it is, the more you need public accountability to rebuild trust. So if I've was late to a business lunch and the boss said it was really important and I said I'd be there on time, I apologize, I start being on time, trust is going to be rebuilt pretty quickly. Someone has been unfaithful with their spouse and they think, well, I apologize, come on, no, that is idiocy. You might be required to never go on a business trip again, or if you do, travel with someone that you trust. That's fair for a time at least. It's fair that there's more public. You have to be willing to show more accountability, and you have to initiate the accountability in something deeper, more hurtful, bigger like that. A big company has to do it by opening their books and saying, here's what we're doing with this. An individual that's had a big thing like that happen, if they want to rebuild trust, they have to open the book, say, I will be accountable. I will not go on a trip, or I will travel with someone, or whatever it is, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, as you spoke, one of the things, my dad, one of the biggest lessons from my dad and my mom, but do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Now, if you apologize, don't justify what you did. You simply apologize. I screwed up. Period. So often I see apologies fall on their face because they're like, let me apologize for what I did because it's like, dude, you just ruined everything you just said before. The apology, like, throw it out the freaking window, man. I didn't hear anything you had to say because you're telling me why you did it.
Totally. And I mean, you got it. Boom, period.
I'm curious because we talked, a little bit about politics, and I know you got another book coming out right around this election. Arguably the most polarizing election of all time.
Yep.
Arguably our country is more divided than it's ever been. How do we regain trust? Because I'm at the point now, I don't care if you're right. I don't care if you're left. You know what I care about? I care about the country winning. And I feel like you want to talk trust eroding. I feel like the pandemic eroded a lot of trust in these government officials. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I will just speak for myself. If you used to say do this, I was like, yeah, sure, blindly. I'll just go with it, man. And lost a bit of critical thinking. Now, you may say do that, but my immediate is actually, I'm going to go ahead and fact check you. Where are you at on this, man? How do you see this? I'm not asking for you to say this is who's going to win. None of that. How do we regain that? And you said one of the things was 9/11 and these tragic incidences. I was actually talking about this the other day as well on a podcast, but we don't want that. How can we get back as a country and start trusting one another, start winning again? Is it possible, man? You're working with some pretty powerful leaders. How's it looking?
Well, I think there's several things here. The book is called Trust Matters More Than Ever. 40 tools, 40 proven tools to lead better, get more results, a bunch of other things. It's really fun. The opening is just a little bit on why it matters more than ever, and it's tools everybody can use tomorrow morning to solve for trust. And we've used it with big time leaders. We've used it with individuals. I do believe trust matters more than ever. I do believe we have a massive problem. I think, to your point, a few things come to mind. One of them is my brother, the economist, who said, we're in a more critical world than we've ever been in without the ability to critically think. And there is truth to that. If you want to if you want to get critiqued for a living, if you want that to be your role in life, by the way, listeners, write a book, right? Give a speech. Right? Oh, he should have worn a tie. He shouldn't have worn a tie. I don't like the color of his glasses. I mean, something's wrong, right? And number 3, lead anything. You're going to get critiqued for a living. So we need leaders that can handle critique and do what's right anyway. So many people are moved by critique. Ooh, will they vote this way? Will they do that way? Will they whatever? And they don't do what's right in the midst of critique. Now, the other side of that problem is we want to blame in America. We want to blame our leaders without taking responsibility that we are putting them there. We are voting them there. We are watching horrible, stupid social media and other things that is, our media knows this is what catches eyes. Junk, garbage, yelling, name calling, the worst of everything is because that's what we are paying attention to. So as a country, we need to do better. I mean, we individuals need to do better so that we can, there's a motivation to elect different, people and to get people that care beyond themselves and this kind of thing. There's a big movement. There has been over the last 10 years, maybe a little bit more, toward a bias in individuals toward instant gratification and entertainment. So humans that want entertainment, they're going to be, watch. I can remember the Reagan debates. I was a kid sitting by my dad, and it was so interesting watching the debate. My dad would talk about, Reagan Dukakis or Reagan, I can't remember, Mondale, whoever he was against. And they were both sides. It was interesting. There was little humor and things, but there was interesting topics. Today, I showed my kids the last debate. I didn't want him to be either. We were on there for 3 minutes, and I said, I don't want you to act like this. That problem is threaded through our country. I do a lot with school boards. I was just with a big, national school board event here last week. And our school boards, I don't want our kids to see a school board meeting because I don't want our kids to act like what the school board members are acting like in many cases. So you have this thread of lack of ability to lead and to do what's right over what's easy. And I could jump all over here, but there's a lot of incentive just to jump back to government. Can't even remember the question, but this might be interesting. There's a lot of incentives in our country against unity, and we have to cut those. So if you take, let's take trust. I'll give you the history of trust in 2 minutes. History of trust. Long time ago, I did not trust for 2 reasons. I didn't trust you because I didn't know you. You're over that mountain. You look differently. You speak a different language. Or I did not trust you because I do know you. Oh, I know that guy. I was backstage with him. I don't trust him, right? Then we moved toward institutional trust hundreds of years later. And we said we had institutions which made things stronger and last longer. So you might have a bad teacher, but you could still trust the education system. You might have a bad politician, but it was slower moving. You could trust the government still. You might, so then came the 1960s, and 80% of people trusted our government in the US to do basically what was right. Now it's like less than 10%. Only worse is media. You remember, maybe, I certainly remember when we had the news. Not anymore. You get your news. Where do you get your news? What's your news? And this is part of a problem of our thread. We are in these echo chambers where we don't get the news. We get ours, and it just amplifies whatever we think already, and it divides us and so forth. Every institution's had the tanking of trust, though. Institutional trust has tanked the government, politics, religion. In our country, almost the same number of people say they believe in God as did 80 years ago. Any measure that would show it, going to a place of worship, giving to a place of worship is down steeply. Education. When I was growing up, homeschooling was weird. Not anymore. People don't trust the institution of education. So you have this institutional shift away from trust. And there's a lot of reasons. In government, 100 years ago, the Republican and Democrat from California would duke it out on the floor, and then they would get in a train and drink together every night on their way back to California. They saw each other as human. They never have a chance to meet anymore. They don't see each other as human. You cannot believe this. I'm out there. They have the freshman orientation for new representatives. They come in for breakfast, and once again, just like they came in, the person kind of in charge says, okay, Republicans, the red bus is ready. Go get on the red bus. Go back to your hotel. Okay, Democrats, the blue bus is ready. Get on your bus. Go back to your hotel. I'm like, what? Are we third graders? You're not even. There's a different deli in the Capitol for Republicans and Democrats. If they don't see each other as human, it's ridiculous. So there's a lot of things I could say about that, but we have got to step up. And I don't know the answers, but some of them have got to be. We've got to stop the deli, the orientation. We might need to put term limits in. We might need to try ranked choice voting. We might need to try some things. I've seen arguments on both sides of ranked choice, but it's better than what we have, I think. So what are we going to try to bring people together? We are so motivated by getting the vote next time. Actually, this morning I was listening to a podcast, and there was a mic that he didn't know about. I can't even remember what senator this was, but he said, I need to be on that stage because my constituent, it was not because he cared about the issue or anything else, but it was because of something like, doesn't care at all about the issue. You just are trying to get on that stage because the constituent deal, and everybody probably knows the story, but somehow we have to motivate coming together for the greater good, and selfishness is winning. Ego is winning. And the problem to me is the sad thing of our future is it's winning, not just in the public, because the leaders, in emerging countries, leaders people are a reflection of their leaders. George Washington, you talk about a sacrificial leader. I'm going to give up kingship. I'm going to give up all this. I am going to sacrifice. And people did the same. And I love the book, The 5,000-Year Leap. I mean, what happened in our country in those days, imperfect as it was, there was this piece of sacrifice. Now, in a later country, a country that's falling, the people reflect the leaders. And the people, by the way, we are reflecting this poison. We are reflecting selfishness. We're reflecting instant gratification. And just look at it. You take anything that takes work. People watch Netflix, average of 1,400 hours a year. They don't read a book. That's a little too hard, right? We are so seeking pleasure over what's good, right, and better that it's no wonder we get that, because we're actually reflecting back and getting the leadership we ask for.
Yeah, it is a fascinating. As you were talking, one of the things that kept hitting me is I actually value somebody that gives me honest, direct feedback far more than someone that is just a yes man. I'll give you a quick example. I have a neighbor. She's not very kind, but she is brutally honest, and she speaks her truth. And by the way, most of the time, could she make it sound nicer? Yes. Could she have some compassion? Yes. But you know what? Whether I like her or I don't, I trust her so much more than the neighbor that just tells me what he thinks I want to hear. And I can see these two people. The people love the guy because he comes across as caring, and he's go along to get along. She is not well liked, but between the two, she tells the truth. Yep. He is I hate to say he's a liar, but I'll tell you what, I've caught him many times in a lie. Mm-hmm. I guess it's a point I don't know if I have a question, a statement. It's just fascinating.
So we do one of the biggest studies, maybe the biggest out of North America, on trust and leadership. One part of it's called the Trust Outlook. Your audience can have access to the white papers for free. But the one interesting finding, we asked people, because we know encouragement's a big deal at work for when they do a good thing, but saying good job is not good. Just good job to people, right? Inauthentically. But interesting part of the finding is people don't just want good job. They want 50-50 critical feedback they want to be noticed for good, but people thought that, oh, they want 100% good. They just want to encourage and affirmation. And the study shows they want to know where they stand. They want to know, what could I do better? They want to know. So, and they trust that, like you said, the neighbor that's going to tell the truth. Hopefully she once in a while notices something good and says that, so you hear something good. But I want to know where I stand, which is true, not flattery or constant whining.
Yeah, and you know that what also makes sense of what you said. And I've never met your dad. I don't even know what the man looks like. But what I do know is I have a mental picture of it wasn't what he was saying, but rather what he was doing.
Undeniably.
And that to me is, I'll give you an example. I was watching the Stanley Cup, the clinching Game 7. And Connor McDavid, if you're a hockey fan, you're from Minnesota, you might be. I'm not really a big hockey fan, although my neighbor did win the Stanley Cup, which is pretty cool. But Connor McDavid, who was the captain of the Oilers, he did this action at the end of the game. He's obviously, he's destroyed because they just lost one of the most important hockey games to ever take place. He waited for every single teammate to get off that ice before he got off. As painful as it had to be for him to watch the Panthers embrace one another and celebrate, his heart was just ripped out. But I will tell you what, I knew right then, this guy is going to, not only is he one of the greatest hockey players on the planet, he's going to win again because of this leadership. I don't know. What are your, that's the taking action versus just saying stuff. When I saw it, I just became such a big Connor McDavid fan. I'm like, this guy is the truth.
Well, you're right. Minnesota's the hockey state, and yet we've never won. So it's kind of funny. We build something up great, the North Stars, and we turn them into the Stars and send them down to win in Dallas. It's kind of like, we build up the Lakers, the Minnesota Lakers. Of course, they should be the Lakers. Then we send them before they ever win down to LA. And why would they have Lakers, of course? So we know how to have everybody else win. But as far as this, I think the thing about real trust and really winning is Connor's going to win at life. I can't guarantee that he wins another championship or wins a championship, but I can guarantee he's going to win. He's going to win relationships. He's probably going to win in the bottom line. We've shown that too. He's probably going to win in endorsements. He's probably going to win in some other things that actually hit the bottom line. That almost always has an effect, by the same way that Tiger lost $110 million in 2 weeks after he did something wrong, and lost a bunch of endorsers. 2 weeks, $110 million because of a character breach, right? So he went back to number one again for a while. He never got a bunch of big time endorsers back, even when he went. This was years ago now. So that kind of behavior, you win in relationships, you win in your ability to sleep at night, you win in so many ways, and almost always in the bottom line with the Connor high character, selfless way of being.
Well, it was just one of those acts, whether he meant to or not. I was so impressed. And it wasn't something that was, they weren't showing it on TV. I saw it later, a picture, watching this happen. I'm just like, oh, I should have also started with David. I am a lifelong Packer fan. I was born in Madison, Wisconsin. So I should have started the interview with that. You know what, brother? This interview has been incredible. So much goodness has come from it. What didn't I know enough to ask you, brother, that you want to make sure to get to the audience as we start to wrap up?
Well, I think about this. I dream about trust. I'm passionate about it. I love the work that I get to do around it. A lot of it, even coming alongside major leaders and being a friend to people that are kind of influential leaders that are alone at the top. I think there's so many takeaways and tips, the MRA and the 90-day quick plan and all the 6 E's to motivate your team with trust and all these kind of things. Like some of those tools and tips and takeaways, I think if people want more, of course, they can come find out about us, trustedge.com, or my name. We are looking for people always that'll carry the flag around trust, because that's when they, really are solving the real most important issues. So I'm there's so many more things I could talk about, so many more things I'm learning. We do, this piece of research. But so I guess if I just put an accent on it, maybe doing one thing, people are just listening to the podcast, I'd think about this. People have said it in different ways. This is the way we say it, and it hits the last pillar, and that is whatever you're doing consistently, you're trusted for whatever you do consistently. Here's how we say it. It's the little things done consistently that make the biggest difference, not the big things. So if I'm if I'm overweight, I've had too many, scoops of ice cream over years, not because I ate too much this morning for breakfast. If I'm a good husband, I've loved and honored my wife over years, not because I gave her a diamond ring or a dozen roses one time. If I'm a good leader, I'm sharing the vision every 14 days, not just once a week once a year at the annual meeting. If I'm a good manager, I'm appreciating my team consistently, not just with a plaque once at the annual meeting. It's little things done consistently, and that's what you're trusted for. There's only one way to build a reputation that's shown up the same way every day. It's little things done consistently. The only way to build a brand in an organization is consistency. So if I was going to think about one thing this week, today, how can I show up more consistently on stage and off stage, in person and on the phone, whatever it is? That's one thing I would start to think about. And then, of course, load of other tools if they're interesting to anybody. And Trust Matters more than ever. It's just coming out, which you can pre-get right now. But those are some ways to connect with us.
Yeah, it's beautifully put. I mean, look, you can't put on a facade forever, but being who you are authentically, when you show up, I think it's so important, A, for you, but B, to build trust. Congrats on the other book, brother. Trust Matters More Than Ever. You guys go check it out. I think this subject is arguably the most important subject we've covered, and we literally covered from start to finish on trust. We weaved in some politics, a little bit of Stanley Cup talk, but brother, it was absolutely fascinating, and I really appreciate the energy. Like you said, you don't have to hit this at 1.5 speed. David had it for you, man. He was ripping. But thank you, brother. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Soon.
You guys,
I hope we get to connect again soon.
Oh, absolutely. You guys, I want you to go back, listen to this. There's so many amazing nuggets in there. I wrote down the 8 core pillars, and I'm really going to take a look in the mirror. Am I doing it? Am I showing up as the leader that I want to be? And now I have a roadmap. So I'm going to go pick up the book. I hope you guys do too. Make sure to share this with anyone, because trust matters literally in every sector of life. And we had the expert talking about it today. So make sure to share this out with someone you care about. Until next time, remember, your mindset matters. I appreciate y'all. We'll talk soon.